All right, guys, it is Sharp Academy time. And here at the Sharp Academy, we teach you. This is all a learning opportunity. And we're going to talk about hold, what hold percentage is at the sports book, specifically when it relates to futures bets. All right. I'm John Statstation Alicia, bringing you all of this educational content, making you a sharper better. Of course, if you're watching this in YouTube, check us out at the Sharp app. If you're watching in the app, you've already downloaded it and we appreciate it. But head on over to our YouTube and help support us there, or over on Twitter at the Sharp app. Over on YouTube, I've got links to all sorts of stuff, our Discord channel, and other great videos that we have that could help you become a sharper better. But for today, we're talking about hold and hold percentages in futures. So firstly, what is the hold? Well, any futures event, I mean, really any event that we are forecasting, that there's a probability for, all of the potential outcomes must equal 100%, right? Any event that's going to happen, if there's going to be a presidential race, we need to know exactly who all the candidates are, and then one of those candidates must win. And maybe in that situation, it'll equal almost 100%. And there'll be a small percentage for someone who's not on that list. This will happen sometimes in golf, let's say, where a book may offer the top 50 golfers, and then they'll offer the field, because then there's a percentage of the golfers, let's say the other 70, 75 golfers who were in the field. They don't want to put a price on them. They're going to offer them as a field bet, and then that percentage gets added into the other 50 golfers. Now, ideally, this should always equal 100%, because there's a 100% chance that one of those outcomes is going to win. All of the others are going to be zero. Now, when you look at a sports book, these won't add up to 100%. They're always going to add up to more than 100%. And by these, I mean the odds. Okay, so now when you convert all of those odds into probabilities and they add up to a number greater than 100%, that is the amount that the book is holding. Of course, the greater that number is, the larger the hold for the sports book and the bigger disadvantage it is for you as a player. As always, I think it's really best that we view this in a spreadsheet, because I think talking about it and seeing it are two different things. It's always easier to have a look at it. So let's head over to the spreadsheet. We'll take a look, and we'll analyze this a little bit more. All right, guys. So firstly, I've taken the futures bets from 6 different sports books currently right now, June 21st, 2021. These are the odds at 6 of the most common, or some of the most common, legal sports books here in the United States: DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Fox Bet, William Hill, and PointsBet. So I'm looking at each NFL team, what their futures bet is to win the Super Bowl. And I've just put that in a chart here that you can see with the blue header. Those are just the straight odds that you're getting from each sports book. Now, how do we figure out who's taking more from us than not? Well, we're going to convert that into probabilities. How we do that, and you're not going to see the formula here because I'm in the way, but on a plus money, I've got videos on this, but on the plus money type of American odds, you're going to take 100, divide that by the odds plus 100, and you come up with your number. So in this instance, for the Chiefs on DraftKings, it would be 100 divided by 500 plus 100, which is 600. So 100 divided by 600, you're going to get 16.7%. You're going to do that for every single one of these bets. And of course, that's what I have here in the second column. So you'll see in green, those are the plays that we like the most. We want the sportsbook to give us the least amount of chance. They want not to give us, but they want that team, or assuming we're making the bet on that team, to have the lowest probability of winning. That means higher odds. That means our payout is greater. So what we do here is we do all the conversions. We convert each one of these American odds into probabilities, and then we add up each of these columns, because they're going to represent the sportsbook and what the take is, or what the hold is for that sportsbook. So as you can see, DraftKings, 124%. That means they're keeping 24% over the 100%, or that is what their hold is, right? Now, they could get hit here where they can take an unusual large bet on an underdog that winds up winning the Super Bowl. Let's say the Bears wind up winning the Super Bowl at plus 4,000. They take a large bet on that. There's no guarantee that they're going to hold 24%, but over time, this is a numbers game. Over time, they should make 24% on everything they bring in for these particular futures, for the NFL futures. So it's not bad, right? A typical NFL game, let's say, of minus 110 on one side, minus 110 on the other side, they're keeping a 4.55% hold. That's the advantage they have, 4.55%. All right, and you can do that, the same calculation here. We're just doing it on a much larger scale. We're doing it for every single team, 32 teams in the NFL, and we're adding up all the probabilities. In the case of a 7.5 point spread, there's only two possible outcomes, right? Minus 110 on one side, minus 110 on the other side. If you take those two probabilities and you add them up, it's 52.2 whatever percent. If you add those up, you wind up with 104.55%. So then the hold is now 4.55%, which is the number over the 100%. Hopefully that's not confusing. Listen back to it. I'm hoping I'm making it clear enough for you. So if we look at DraftKings, they're keeping 124. FanDuel here, 123%. BetMGM, that's our best one of these six. They're only keeping, and I say only, but it's only 120%. They're keeping 20% there. The hold 124 on Fox Bet, 123 at William Hill, and then PointsBet. This is the worst one of all of them, 127%. Now, if we look at it, before we do one more calculation that I really want to, or maybe a couple more calculations that I want to show you, I've color coded this, right? So you can see, now you know that, well, BetMGM, that's where I want to make my bets then on futures for the NFL. Well, not so fast, right? This is why we want to have multiple sports books. This is why over in the Sharp app, we've got what I call an aggregator, and you can look at different prices at different books. And if you have access to multiple books, and if you're in a state that is legal and you can open up accounts at multiple books, I strongly suggest doing so. For one, you get a lot of benefits as far as promotions from each different book. They're begging for your business. But two, you shop around. If there was only one supermarket in your town, the prices would, of course, be a lot higher for groceries. It's kind of what's going on with Amazon taking over the world. It's going to be tough when you can only buy from Amazon. So we need other companies out there. You need those small mom and pop shops, as well as the Walmarts and the Targets and everyone else who can compete against an Amazon. But in this instance, if you just had one sports book, of course, the prices, they could widen these spreads. You'd probably see 140% on the hold numbers, right? So they're in the 120s, but you've got BetMGM, and you look at this, you do all this analysis, and then you say, all right, I'm going to put my futures bets in with BetMGM, but not so fast. Look at what we're seeing here is the top plays. In other words, the teams that have the highest probability of winning is where BetMGM is actually terrible, right? So they're giving the Chiefs, you're getting plus 450 on the Chiefs right now when almost all of the other sports books are giving you plus 500. You're getting plus 650, which a lot of the other books have, plus 650 as well. But if you go over to Fox Bet, you're getting plus 750 on the Bucks. Now, they have the one good one here that's better than everybody else. The third choice, the Bills, plus 1,400. You're getting plus 1,200. Everywhere else, plus 1,300 at William Hill. But then when we look at the Rams and the 49ers and the Ravens and the Browns, on those bets, you're getting the worst of it by playing at BetMGM. You could do better at another sports book. Now, when I say the worst of it, they are in line with most of the other books. But if we had access to all six books, we're going to get a better price on Fox Bet, where you look at Fox Bet's giving us great prices for the most part on the teams that are most likely to win. Now, where BetMGM comes in really well here is from the Bears down. Basically, the crappy teams in the league. So if you are betting these super long shots, BetMGM is where you want to be. So while we may have an advantage at BetMGM on the whole, they're taking less of a hold on these games. It's really going to be dependent, and you're going to want to look at each sportsbook. That's why we look at every sportsbook before we place a wager and see where we could get the best price. It's essential if you're going to make money at this. All right. So after I was finishing up the video on hold, I had an idea that I should probably show you guys just what a big advantage it is to get the best price on each one of these bets. So assuming we had a sports book that they were offering us the best price. So let's say, hey, we'll match any price out there. Like it was some retail store, we'll match your best price. And you had a sports book that could do that. I mean, essentially you can do that if you have access to all of these sports books. But let's look at what the whole percentage drops to if we get the best price at each and every book. So all I did was just take the best price from each sports book, do the same conversion, right? So I'm just converting the odds into probabilities and then adding up all those probabilities. Look at what we get. We get down to 112%. That's not even close to any of the books whole percentage, right? They were all about 124 was pretty good. We had 120, but they were all in that 124 range. It almost pretty much knocks this down half of the whole percentage, right? Down to 12%. So I just wanted to show you exactly why you want to try to be getting the best possible spreads. And when you do this on a individual basis, like individual game basis, there are times where you're going to cut that 4.5 to 5% edge down to 1%. Sometimes you may even find an arbitrage situation where you get a plus EV situation by playing both sides of the game. So really important, multiple sports books. I thought I'd quickly show this to you. And thanks again for watching. All right. But I want to continue and show you if you're trying to figure out, and I do this a lot, you're trying to figure out what's the probability that the Chiefs win the world, or the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I should say, right? What's the probability? Well, you can do it at one specific book. Just look at DraftKings and say, okay, the probability here that they win, it's plus 500. Looks like a 16.7% probability that DraftKings at least is putting on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. But that's not quite the case, because we know when we add these all up, it's 124%. And it can't equal 124% because there's only a 100% chance that one of these teams is going to win the Super Bowl. So how do we figure it out? Well, what we do is we take that 16.7% and then we divide it by what that total hold number is, which is in this case 124%. So if we take 16.7%, divide it by 124%, you get 13.4% that you're looking at here in column P, P2 to be exact, right under DK. So in actuality, what DraftKings is telling you is they think the Chiefs win the Super Bowl 13.4% of the time, which is good for us if we're betting on the Chiefs at DraftKings, because that's better. That's a lower number than all of the other sports books outside of Fox Bet, who's giving us the same probabilities here. So when we look at DraftKings compared to FanDuel actually probably thinks this is at a 13.6%. Now these numbers aren't going to be exact. It doesn't exactly hold true across the board, but this is a good way to figure it out. It's the best way probably to figure out what the book thinks the probability is of this event occurring. So we do this for all of them, right? We're just going to look at that specific sports book. We're going to divide by the hold, and that's going to be the actual number that the sports book thinks the probability is of this event happening, in this case, the Super Bowl. And then we can also now convert that back into odds. And if I scroll over a little bit, you'll see that in full. We convert that to odds, and you've got, in the case of Kansas City, they should be plus 646 as opposed to the plus 500 that they're offering. So if they gave us a fair line, plus 646 according to their book would be fair. At BetMGM, they think the probability is even higher that Kansas City wins. Now, if for some reason you needed to do this, let's say, for instance, it's a boost play, and you wanted to know where the market was at, I would take an average of all these sports books and try to figure out, well, what's the average? What are the on average do they think in a fair number? This would be a fair number. What do they think the fair number is on the probability of Kansas City winning the Super Bowl? Let's say they gave you some boost on Kansas City winning the Super Bowl, and the boost was plus 600. Well, would that be that great of a boost? Not really, right? Because they should be offering us, if it's DraftKings, they should be offering us like plus 650. And that would be close to fair. And maybe it's a little lower than that when you factor in all the other sports books. But on paper, in front of you, you're going to say, well, plus 600 looks good. Now, it is good. If you wanted to already bet Kansas City and you took that boost, of course, it's better than just playing them in the market. But if you were blindly making this play, it's not necessarily the greatest play in the world. you're not at any plus EV. There's no advantage there. And to figure out the EV, how do we do that? You could go back to my EV video, but the numbers that you're going to want to be using, assuming we're not working with a model, is we're working with the probability that the sports books themselves are telling us. Take an average of what the Kansas City probabilities are, and that's the probability that you're going to use when you plug it into the EV formula that I have in the other video. So it's going to be somewhere around, let's say, 14% here if we took an average. I don't have the average. I guess I can do the work here, and we'll just take the quick average here. So 13.8% would be the average. And now what you would do is you would say, okay, if I put $100 on Kansas City at DraftKings and they pay me plus 500, right? I'm going to win $500 13.8% of the time. You calculate what that number is, 13.8 times the 500. I'm going to lose $100, 100% minus that 13.8% of the time, right? So that is what, 85.2% of the time. Is that right? 86.2% of the time, sorry. 86.2% of the time. And you'd multiply that by 100. That's an easy one. That's 86.2. All right. Might as well do the math. I've got you guys here, right? So if we do the $86.2 to the negative, that's what we can expect to lose. But we're going to win $500. I'm just going to use a calculator. I'm good, but I'm not that good. And we're going to do 0.138%. And we're going to win $69 on average, 13.8% of the time. So obviously this is a negative EV play. Now, what if we took the boost of $600? Well, the $600 now would be multiplied. That's 600 times the 13.8%, right? That puts us at 82.8%. But as we said, we are 1 minus the 13.8%, which is 86.2%. And when you multiply that by 100, you get $86.2. We're still at a negative EV. It's close to being equal, close to a flat type of EV, but we're still negative. Much better EV than playing this straight against the book at plus 500, of course. We're getting plus 600 now in a boost, our hypothetical boost, but still not where fair value is. So if we want to figure out what fair value is, this is how you would do it. You would you would first figure out what the hold is and then figure out fair value. So just a little something for you guys to think about, play around with this. I like to, look at this in futures. If you want to look at it every week for golf, see which sportsbook's giving you the best. From what I've noticed, FanDuel far superior than DraftKings on golf as far as what the hold percentage is. It could sway which way you're going to play, which sportsbook. If you have to just play at one book, this may sway your opinion on one book to the other. But try this out. Leave some comments for me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And until the next video, I'll see you guys soon.